Hello, I'm Hannah, and this is Hannah's Books. Although it was a little slow to get started this year here in Washington, D.C., fall has been a beautiful season so far. We kicked off our celebration by going to see our local Morris Men dance on one of the very early chilly evenings of autumn. The Foggy Bottom Morris Man had been part of our lives for a couple of decades now. When he was really little, our son especially liked to watch them dance at the winter solstice celebrations in our town. He grew to love them so much that he decided to dress as a Morris dancer for Halloween when he was still quite a young boy. When he was in the 8th grade and violin had become a big part of his life, he asked them if he could apprentice as a musician with the otherwise adult team. The Foggs were kind enough to take him in, and within a year or so, my son was not only playing the fiddle for them, but dancing regularly, and my husband joined the team as well. Although our son is away at college and my husband does not dance with them now, we still love to go watch them perform, catch up with their stories, and share a pint with them at one of our local pubs. One of my other big fall adventures has been getting back in the habit of making sourdough bread. Although I kept my starter well fed and used it regularly for waffles all summer, I baked very little during the hot and humid days we had here in DC. When it's in the high 90s outside, it always feels that turning the oven to 500 degrees Fahrenheit in our unair-conditioned home might not be a good idea. But now that the weather has cooled down, the sourdough starter is getting back into the regular rotation. This year I learned how to make a pumpkin-shaped bread. After letting the dough go through a long bulk fermentation and then rise slowly overnight in a floured banneton, the standard sourdough procedure I follow, I dump the unbaked loaf down on a series of lengths of hemp twine, then tie the twine fairly loosely on the top before baking. For the first 18 minutes, it bakes with the lid on. For the second 18 minutes, it bakes uncovered. After it comes out of the oven and cools off for a little while, I snip the twine and pull it off the bread. A couple of pecan halves served as a short stem for this loaf. Next time I try a pumpkin-shaped loaf, maybe for Thanksgiving, I might try a segment of cinnamon stick for the stem, along with some of the sage leaves growing in our front yard garden. My husband David and I spent one sunny afternoon at a local public garden. One of our favorite parts of the garden is a stone labyrinth, which we always make a point to follow. It's such a meditative space, even when it's full of other people out to enjoy the autumn sunshine as it was this day. After we spent some time at the labyrinth and walked through much of the rest of the garden, we visited this fellow reader, chilling out near the restrooms as we prepared to drive home to our own books. Halloween is always a special time of the year for us, since it's the anniversary of our first date. 27 years ago, I dressed as a witch. I have been a witch for every Halloween of my life. And David dressed as Paddington Bear, wearing my hooded coat with toggle closures and adorning himself with a luggage tag, asking me to please take care of this bear. We showed up at our friend's party together, shyly holding hands. Our friends were unimpressed, expressing that they had assumed we'd been dating for months, even though it was all brand new to us. Now, all these years later, my husband and I spent Halloween passing out candy to trick-or-treaters while drinking champagne. We were so happy to get a chance to celebrate again this year. David and I just returned from a long weekend in Boston, visiting our son, who was a junior in college. I've mentioned before on this channel that he is an English major, obsessed with Shakespeare, and many of you know that I film most of my videos in front of one of his bookshelves back in his room at home, a shelf full of a variety of translations of Beowulf and other works. We had a wonderful time exploring the campus during this crisp fall season and seeing all the leaves changing and falling around us. David and I went up this particular weekend to attend the opening night of a student-written folk musical which our son directed, which debuted on the main stage of the American Repertory Theater in Cambridge. Getting to meet the writers, actors, musicians, and other crew, as well as getting to hear about their adventures in sound engineering and lighting design, costume decision making, etc. was so exciting. I can't wait to see what these young people do in the future. Although we had a wonderful time in Boston, I'm glad to be back home now, and I'm eager to get back to my favorite reading spot while the sun is still brightly shining through the window. Thanks for joining me today. See you soon with a return to more bookish content.